The clock is ticking, and what I'm about to reveal could change everything you thought you knew about your citizenship status. If you hold dual citizenship or you're planning to acquire it, the next few minutes could be the most important of your entire life. Something massive happened in October 2025 that sent shockwaves through immigration communities worldwide, and if you're not prepared, you could lose rights you didn't even know were at risk. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll have all the critical information you need to protect yourself and your family. Let me start by saying this isn't about spreading fear. This is about arming you with facts, with truth, with the knowledge that governments often bury in complex legal jargon, hoping most people won't notice until it's too late. October 2025 marked a turning point in how nations around the world are handling dual citizenship, and whether you're an American, Canadian, British, Australian, or hold passports from multiple countries, these changes are already affecting millions of people just like you. So, what exactly happened in October? Multiple countries simultaneously updated their citizenship laws in ways that haven't been seen in decades. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a coordinated effort driven by national security concerns, tax compliance issues, and, frankly, a growing skepticism about divided loyalties in an increasingly fractured world. The pandemic changed how governments think about borders, about sovereignty, about who belongs where. And now, 3 years after the world reopened, we're seeing the consequences play out in citizenship policy. Let's break down the most significant changes country by country, because what affects you depends entirely on which passports you hold or plan to hold. First, let's talk about the United States. The U.S. has always had a complicated relationship with dual citizenship. Technically, they recognize it. Practically, they've made it incredibly burdensome through tax reporting requirements that follow you wherever you go in the world. But October 2025 brought something new, something that caught even immigration lawyers off guard. The U.S. State Department announced enhanced vetting procedures for anyone holding or applying for dual citizenship with what they're calling countries of concern. Now, this list isn't publicly available in its entirety, which is part of the problem. We know it includes nations that the U.S. has complicated diplomatic relationships with. But the vagueness is intentional. It gives officials discretionary power to flag applications, to delay passport renewals, to question your travel patterns and financial transactions in ways that would have been considered overreach just a few years ago. If you're a U.S. citizen who also holds citizenship in Russia, China, Iran, or several other nations, you're now subject to annual reporting requirements. You have to disclose foreign bank accounts, property ownership, business interests, and even extended family connections. Miss a reporting deadline and you could face penalties ranging from hefty fines to passport revocation. Yes, they can actually take away your U.S. passport if they determine you're not in compliance, even if you're a natural-born citizen. This is unprecedented in modern American history. But it gets more complex. The October updates also addressed automatic citizenship transmission to children born abroad. Previously, if you were a U.S. citizen and your child was born in another country, that child could claim U.S. citizenship relatively easily. The new rules impose stricter physical presence requirements on the parent. You now need to prove you lived in the United States for at least 5 years after age 14 before your child's birth, and 2 of those years must be consecutive. For military families, diplomats, and Americans working abroad long-term, this creates a nightmare scenario where their children might not qualify for citizenship they assumed was automatic. Now, let's cross the Atlantic and look at the European Union, because what happened there affects hundreds of millions of people. The EU has always been a patchwork of different citizenship laws. Some countries, like Germany, traditionally restricted dual citizenship except in special cases. Others, like Ireland and Portugal, have been remarkably open. October 2025 brought an attempt at harmonization, and not in the direction most people hoped. The European Commission issued new guidelines strongly encouraging member states to adopt reciprocal citizenship policies. What does that mean in plain English? It means if your home country doesn't allow dual citizenship with EU nations, EU countries are now being pushed to deny or revoke your EU citizenship. This particularly impacts people from countries like India, China, and Japan, where dual citizenship is restricted or prohibited. If you're an Indian citizen who naturalized in Germany, you might now face pressure to formally renounce your Indian citizenship in a way that's actually verified and recorded, not just a paper formality. Several EU countries went even further. The Netherlands announced they're tightening their already strict dual citizenship rules. The UK, even post-Brexit, introduced new security screenings for dual citizens from what they term high-risk jurisdictions. France has begun requiring dual citizens to declare their secondary citizenship when applying for certain government positions and security clearances. Spain and Italy, traditionally more relaxed, are now conducting audits of recently granted citizenships to ensure applicants met all requirements, and they're finding reasons to revoke in cases where minor discrepancies exist. But here's where it gets really interesting and really concerning. Several European countries are now sharing citizenship databases in ways they never did before. If you naturalized in one EU country and are now applying in another, the second country will know. They'll see your entire immigration history, every visa overstay, every application you ever made. The privacy implications are staggering, and the potential for discrimination based on your country of origin is very real. Canada, often seen as the most welcoming immigration destination in the world, hasn't been immune to these changes either. While Canada still broadly supports dual citizenship, October 2025 brought revisions to the Citizenship Act that add new grounds for revocation. The government can now strip citizenship from naturalized Canadians if they're convicted of terrorism-related offenses or if they obtained citizenship through fraud, and the definition of fraud has been expanded significantly. Previously, fraud meant lying about your identity or criminal history. Now it includes failing to disclose business interests, providing incomplete travel history, or even misrepresenting your intention to reside in Canada if you leave shortly after naturalizing. Immigration lawyers are calling this the intent clause, and it's terrifying because it's subjective. How do you prove your intentions from years ago? How do you defend yourself against an accusation that you never really planned to stay when circumstances changed and you moved for a job or family reasons? Australia took perhaps the boldest step of any major immigration destination. In October, they announced a three-tier citizenship system. Full citizens enjoy all rights without restrictions. Provisional citizens, a new category for most naturalized citizens in their first 10 years, face limitations on holding certain government jobs and must maintain primary residence in Australia for at least 6 months per year. Non-compliant citizens, those who fail to meet reporting requirements or who are dual citizens with countries Australia deems problematic, can have their citizenship suspended, not revoked, but suspended, meaning they can't access consular services abroad or return to Australia without special permission. This system hasn't been formally implemented yet, but the legislation passed, and it's scheduled to begin in phases starting early 2026. The Australian government claims this is about national security and ensuring new citizens are genuinely committed to the country. Critics call it creating a second-class citizenship that violates fundamental principles of equality under law. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not involved in anything questionable. I have nothing to worry about. And I understand that instinct, but here's the reality. These laws aren't just about catching criminals or terrorists. They're about control, about data collection, about governments wanting to know everything about your life when you choose to belong to more than one nation. Let me give you a real example. A woman I'll call Maria, because I'm protecting her identity, was born in the Philippines, moved to Canada as a teenager, naturalized as a Canadian citizen, and later obtained Portuguese citizenship through ancestry. She's a nurse, pays her taxes, has never been in legal trouble. In October, when she went to renew her Canadian passport, she was flagged. Why? because the system showed she had traveled to Portugal frequently, and the algorithm determined she might be primarily residing there, which could violate the new intent provisions. She had to provide 2 years of bank statements, employment records, lease agreements, and utility bills to prove she maintained genuine ties to Canada. The process took 4 months, cost her thousands in legal fees, and caused her to miss family emergencies because she couldn't travel without a valid passport. She did nothing wrong, but the burden of proof fell entirely on her to demonstrate her compliance with rules that didn't even exist when she naturalized. These stories are multiplying rapidly. Online forums for dual citizens are filled with people sharing similar experiences. Passport renewals that used to take weeks now take months. Simple questions at border crossings now become lengthy interrogations. Applications for children's citizenship that were once straightforward now require mountains of documentation. So, what should you do? How do you protect yourself in this new landscape? First, document everything. If you're a dual citizen or planning to become one, keep meticulous records of where you live, where you work, where you travel, and why. Save bank statements, lease agreements, employment contracts, tax returns. Keep both digital and physical copies. This might seem paranoid, but in an era where you could be asked to prove your compliance with citizenship requirements years after the fact, documentation is your best defense. Second, understand the specific laws of every country where you hold citizenship. Don't assume that what's allowed in one country is allowed in another. Don't assume that because you obtained citizenship legally years ago that you're automatically in compliance with new rules. Many of these October changes are retroactive in effect, meaning they apply to citizenship you've held for years or even decades. Third, consult with immigration lawyers who specialize in dual citizenship issues. I'm not a lawyer, and this video isn't legal advice. Every situation is unique, and the complexity of modern citizenship law means you need professional guidance tailored to your specific circumstances. Yes, lawyers are expensive, but having your citizenship revoked or suspended is far more costly in the long run. Fourth, stay informed. Citizenship laws are changing faster now than at any point in modern history. What's true today might not be true 6 months from now. Follow official government websites, subscribe to immigration law newsletters, join online communities of dual citizens from your countries. Knowledge is power, and in this environment, ignorance can lead to losing rights you assumed were permanent. Fifth, consider the implications for your children and future generations. If you're planning to have children or already have young children, understand how these changes affect their ability to claim citizenship. The tightening of automatic citizenship transmission means you might need to take active steps to secure your children's citizenship while they're young rather than assuming they can claim it later in life. Sixth, be strategic about acquiring additional citizenships. If you're considering naturalizing in a second or third country, research carefully how that will affect your existing citizenship. Some countries require you to renounce other citizenships as part of naturalization. Others technically allow dual citizenship but make it practically difficult. Understand what you're gaining and what you might be risking before you make irreversible decisions. Seventh, prepare for increased scrutiny when traveling. Border agents in many countries now have access to more information than ever before. They can see all your citizenships, all your past entries and exits, patterns in your travel behavior. Be prepared to answer questions about why you have multiple passports, where you primarily live, what ties you maintain to each country. Be honest, be respectful, but also know your rights. You're generally not required to answer questions about your political views, religious beliefs, or reasons for having dual citizenship beyond basic immigration law requirements. Eighth, keep your passports and citizenship documents secure but accessible. With increased verification requirements, you may need to produce original documents on short notice. Keep them in a safe place, but make sure you can access them quickly if needed. Also, keep certified copies in separate locations in case originals are lost or stolen. Now let's talk about the bigger picture, because these October changes didn't happen in a vacuum. We're living through a moment of significant global realignment. The post-World War II international order, which generally encouraged open borders and freedom of movement, is being questioned. Nationalism is rising in countries around the world. Governments are prioritizing security and control over mobility and multiculturalism. The pandemic accelerated these trends dramatically. When countries closed their borders overnight, when citizens were stranded abroad, when nations prioritized their own people over international cooperation, it revealed how fragile the system of global mobility really is. Dual citizenship, once seen as a bridge between cultures and nations, is now increasingly viewed with suspicion by bureaucrats who see it as divided loyalty. This is a tragedy in many ways. Dual citizenship represents some of the best aspects of our interconnected world. It recognizes that people can belong to multiple places, that identity isn't zero-sum, that you can love and contribute to more than one country. The millions of people who hold dual citizenship are often the most globally minded, the most culturally aware, the most capable of bridging differences between nations. But we need to be realistic about the political environment we're operating in. For at least the next several years, dual citizens should expect increased scrutiny, more paperwork, more questions, more bureaucratic hurdles. This isn't about to reverse course anytime soon. If anything, I expect we'll see further restrictions in the coming years as more countries follow the lead of the changes implemented in October. There's also a class dimension to this that we need to acknowledge. Wealthy individuals with access to expensive lawyers and citizenship by investment programs can often navigate these restrictions more easily. They can afford the legal fees, they can pay for expedited processing, they can invest their way into favorable outcomes. Meanwhile, ordinary dual citizens, especially refugees, asylum seekers, and people from developing countries, face the harshest scrutiny with the fewest resources to fight back. This creates a two-tiered system where dual citizenship becomes a privilege of the wealthy rather than a right equally available to all. That should trouble anyone who believes in equality and fairness, regardless of your political views. When we create systems where rights depend on wealth rather than merit or need, we undermine the fundamental principles that democratic societies are supposed to uphold. So, where does this leave us? October 2025 marked a turning point, but it's not the end of the story. The next few years will determine whether we're witnessing a temporary tightening in response to security concerns or a fundamental shift in how the world thinks about citizenship and belonging. My hope is that as pandemic fears recede further into memory, as international tensions ease, we'll see a return to more welcoming policies. But hope isn't a strategy, and counting on political winds to shift in your favor is naive. If you're a dual citizen, accept that you're now in a category that requires more vigilance, more documentation, more awareness of legal requirements across multiple jurisdictions. It's not fair that you face burdens that single citizenship holders don't. But fairness isn't the world we're living in right now. What matters is protecting yourself and your family by understanding the rules and complying with them, even when they seem unreasonable. If you're considering dual citizenship, go into it with eyes wide open. Understand that it's not just about the benefits of having a second passport. It comes with obligations, reporting requirements, and potential complications that could follow you for life. That doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue it. Many people find that the benefits far outweigh the drawbacks, but make an informed decision rather than an emotional one. For immigration lawyers, consultants, and advocates, October 2025 should be a wake-up call. We need to do more to educate dual citizens about their rights and obligations. We need to push back against policies that create second-class citizenship or that impose unreasonable burdens on people who are simply trying to maintain ties to multiple countries. We need to document cases where these rules are being applied unfairly and use them to advocate for reform. For policymakers, I would urge you to consider the unintended consequences of these restrictions. Yes, national security matters. Yes, tax compliance matters. But there are ways to achieve those goals without making dual citizenship so burdensome that only the wealthy can afford to maintain it. There are ways to vet people without treating everyone with multiple passports as inherently suspicious. Strike a better balance between security and freedom, between control and mobility. And for all of us, regardless of citizenship status, we need to think carefully about what kind of world we want to live in. Do we want a world where borders are rigid and movement is restricted, where belonging to one place means rejecting all others? Or do we want a world where people can maintain connections across borders, where dual citizenship is celebrated as a bridge between cultures rather than viewed with suspicion? I know which world I want to live in, but I'm also a realist about where we are today. The October 2025 changes represent a step backward in my view, but they're the reality we have to navigate. So navigate them wisely, stay informed, protect your rights, and don't assume that citizenship, even citizenship you were born with, is permanent and untouchable. In this new era, nothing is guaranteed, and vigilance is the price of maintaining the freedoms we have. Before I let you go, I want to emphasize one more time that I'm not trying to panic you. Information is power, and my goal with this video is to empower you with the knowledge you need to make good decisions. If you're a dual citizen and you've been following the rules, paying your taxes, maintaining genuine ties to your countries, you're probably going to be fine. But fine doesn't mean you can ignore these changes. It means you need to be aware, be prepared, and be proactive about protecting your status. Thank you for watching this incredibly important video all the way through. I know it's a lot of information to process, and some of it is deeply concerning. But you're now among the informed few who understand what's really happening with dual citizenship in the wake of October 2025. If this video helped you, do me a favor and share it with anyone else who holds or is considering dual citizenship. This information needs to reach as many people as possible before they find themselves in situations like Maria, scrambling to prove compliance with rules they didn't know existed. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future updates, because I guarantee you this story is far from over. Leave a comment below telling me which country you hold citizenship in and whether you've experienced any of these new restrictions firsthand. Building a community of informed dual citizens helps all of us navigate this challenging landscape together. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember that knowledge is the best protection you have in an uncertain world.